Welcome to Desert Fox Radio. Today we're talking about a band that should be mentioned in the same breath as the Beatles, the Stones, and the Who. Instead, most people either don't know them at all or they know one song from the last scene of Breaking Bad and never followed up. That ends today. We're talking about Badfinger and their 1971 album, Straight Up. The story begins in Wales in the early 1960s. A kid named Pete Ham starts a band called the Ivies. They grind for years on a British club circuit, dreaming of the big time. Their break came in January of 1968. Beatles road manager Mal Evans and A&R man Pete Asher happened to catch the Ivies' performance at the Marquee Club. They loved what they heard. The demo tape got passed to each Beatle. The band got signed. Their name came straight out of the Beatles' lore. The working title for A Little Help from My Friends was Badfinger Boogie because John Lennon had hurt his hand during the recording. The Ivies became Badfinger, and just like that, they were on Apple Records rubbing shoulders with the most famous band on the planet. Paul McCartney took them under his wing and even wrote their first hit, Come and Get It. Pete Ham and the boys proved they could write their own hits too, and they did, one after another. By 1971, they were ready to make their statement record, what became Straight Up, one of the most complicated recording stories of the era. Sessions began with engineer Jeff Emmerich at Abbey Road, but the tapes were rejected after the label insisted Badfinger try for a more polished sound. So George Harrison stepped in. Harrison was an avid Badfinger fan who had already worked with all four members on All Things Must Pass. His vision was to make something more sophisticated, an Abbey Road-style record. But Harrison got pulled away to organize the concert for Bangladesh, where Badfinger also performed, by the way, and handed the project to American producer Todd Rundgren. So this album has two of the most talented producers of the rock era working on it, and you can hear it. Straight Up, released December 13th, 1971, is rightly considered a landmark in power pop. The album opens with Take It All, Pete Ham pouring everything he has into a vocal performance that hits you right in the chest. From there, it doesn't let up. Baby Blue, produced by Todd Rundgren, went to number 14 in the US charts. Decades later, it got introduced to a whole new generation as the closing song of Breaking Bad. If that scene doesn't give you chills, check your pulse. Then there's Day After Day, written by Pete Ham and produced by George Harrison, who also plays slide guitar on the record. On the recording. It became Badfinger's highest charting single, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard 100 and going gold in March of 1972. That shimmer you hear on the guitar, that's a Beatle playing on your record. Not a bad get. And then there's Name of the Game, a 5-minute ballad that builds and builds. It's a real tearjerker, the kind of song that stays with you long after the needle lifts. Even the brightest, sweetest songs on this record carry a kind of a dark beauty, and the deep cuts like Sweet Tuesday Morning and Perfection reward anyone patient enough to sit through the whole album. But here's where the story gets hard, and it would be wrong to talk about Badfinger without going there. When Harry Nilsson first heard Without You, written by Pete Ham and Todd Evans, he assumed it was a Beatles song. It became a worldwide number 1 hit. Badfinger gave the world that song, but they never got their due. Their manager, Stan Polly, turned out to be a fraud who drained the band's finances dry. Apple Records collapsed into legal chaos. Album releases got shelved. The band that should have been on top of the world found themselves penniless and locked out of their own music. In the early hours of April 24th, 1975, Pete Ham, just 27 years old, took his own life. He left a note pointing the finger directly at Polly. And then, 8 years later, on November 19th, 1983, bassist Tom Evans also took his own life, caught in a bitter dispute of the songwriting royalties for Without You, the very song he and Pete had written together. Two men gave the world some of the most beautiful songs of their generation, gone. Joey Molland once said the band viewed themselves as carrying on the tradition of everything they grew up with: Welsh, folk songs, American rock and roll, the Beatles. We gave the music a hard edge because we liked rock and roll, and we also made the songs more melodic. That's straight up in one sentence. Go find this album. It deserves your full attention. The playlist is linked below. Start with Day After Day. Stay for all 12 tracks, and remember the names: Pete Ham and Tom Evans. This is the Desert Fox Radio. I'll see you next time.